So today I have to change my alternator, and I'm also going to change a belt because my iDrive came on saying alternator malfunction. So I went and got these AutoZone. This is Duralast Ultra Duralast Gold. It's a new alternator. It's model number DLG 11358N. I'll zoom in a little bit on there. Focus. And I also got a Serpentine belt. Continental, number is 4060610. It comes with a 3-year warranty. The alternator is lifetime. So the plan is to get to the alternator, which is in the bottom here in the corner over there. So first I have to take off the intake hose here, and I think under here is a there's a vacuum hose connected to the intake here. And first I gotta get the cover off, and the cover is covered. We have 4 T30 screws, so you got to get those off to get the cover off. And then you're gonna need a T60 to get to the tensioner down here to get it off. And so you go clockwise once you put the T60 torque socket on there, and to get the belt off. And there are 2 bolts that's holding the alternator in. They're like supposed to be 2 16mm bolts. You can see one here, and one is further down. Hopefully I don't have to remove the tensioner to get to the bottom bolts, but we'll see as we go. So I'll let you take you step by step through it. So first I need to take the cover off, then intake hose, and then vacuum hose back here, and go through. So as soon as I get the cover off, then I'll continue. So first thing I gotta do is remove the vacuum hose, which is right here, off the intake duct. And then I have to loosen this screw here, loosen the clamp, and there is another screw here at the end of the clamp. I think you can use a flathead, or you can use, so I'm going to use a flathead to remove that. And once I remove that, then I'm going to go down to the tensioner. So as you can see, I took the intake duct off. Now I got to get to the tensioner, which is right here, and you need a T60 torque and extension, maybe with an extension to get to it, and then you're gonna go clockwise. So you're gonna go to the right to remove the belt. So there are 2 bolts that hold the alternator in. The bottom bolt is very long, and the top bolt is the short bolt. So you gotta remember that. And they're right there. Now I gotta try to get the alternator to get loose, but first I need to there's a bracket that holds the alternator cable there. I gotta undo that. There's a black hose here that run along the alternator there. Can't really see it, but it's right above the alternator. You gotta loosen the bracket before I can pull out the alternator. So I got the alternator disconnected, but to get it out, I don't know. Still gonna try an error here. First, I took this piece off front here, attached by these 30T bolts, all around here. The piece that covered the radiator. So on the new alternator here, you have the cable bolt here, and you have the computer wire in here. There's a socket here, so you gotta release it. This is what the hole looks like. It just has one knob in there. So you press on the top to get the cable out, and then you have the 30mm nut here to get the cable off. So now I'm still trying to figure out how to get it out of the hole. See, I disconnect the cable and I unscrew the cable. There's a cable here. Gotta unscrew it from off the alternator. But now I gotta figure out how to get it out. I don't know if I gotta figure out how to remove this radiator fan. Maybe that's the easier route, or maybe I have to take this radiator hose off. Or maybe I have to remove the tensioner right here. So I'll go step by step. So I had to remove the tensioner. It's a 16mm bolt. So I gotta take that off. But I still couldn't get access to get it out. So I put a piece of cardboard in front of the radiator fan, and I took the top piece off the radiator, and I gotta try to pull the radiator out. But first, I have to remove this clamp here on the radiator hose to get the fan out. The fan has two electrical sockets connected to it, one here and one down here, and then you just have to pull it up to get it out. But first I have to remove this piece here, the radiator hose here. It has a clip where you pull up on it to get it off, and I might have to remove this hose, this little clamp here, to get it off. So let's see what happened. So now I got the tensioner out, I got the radiator fan out. It's right there. It's actually have a clip on it where you can turn it. It's like a flap. So actually I didn't have to remove the hose, but I found out later. Well, there's a flap on it where you can fold it so it goes behind the hose so you can get it out. So lesson learned. Anyway, so I put a piece of cardboard in here to protect the radiator so the alternator doesn't fall on top of it and put a hole in it. So I'm gonna pull the alternator out now. Okay, so here's the alternator that I took out, and here's the new one. I need to transfer the idler pulley off the old one to the new one. So I gotta pry the cap off, and then I think it's a T40 to get the nut out. Right back. So it's actually a T50 torque X to get it off. So once I get it off, I'm going to transfer it to the other to the other alternator. And here's a cap that comes off of there. So the new alternator is all set, ready to go. I put the idler pulley back on there. I just got to put it in, connect the cable, and connect the socket right here. So I connect both cables, and that's the big cable and the little cable. Reconnect those, and now I'm gonna reset it and put the bolts in. So now pretty much hand thread the bolts in. The shorter bolt go on top and the longer bolt goes on the bottom. So now I'm gonna retighten them and put the new belt on. So I put the alternator back in and I put the belt on. So you gotta remember the top bolt is the short bolt and the bottom bolt is the long bolt. You got to put the tensioner back on. Let's also use a 16mm bolt. So you got to reconnect on the alternator the big cable here on the back, and the new alternator come with the 12mm nut. The original one had a 13mm. So there's a socket you gotta plug in to the alternator that connect to the iDrive so it can read the alternator. You gotta make sure you put that back on. Put the belt on. You have the tensioner, and of course I just have the diagram here. So let me go get the diagram. So here's the diagram. This is a belt. Here's a diagram here. So you got to go from the alternator to the idler pulley, to the bore steering, to the crankshaft, to the tensioner, and to the water pump. Here's the belt. It's a Continental belt, 4060610, 3-area warranty at AutoZone. So to put it on, you gotta go to alternator, up to the water pump, tensioner, crankshaft, power steering, and the idler, and then back up to the alternator. And you need the T60 torque to go clockwise to put the belt back on. That's it. And once now that I put it on, what I'm gonna do is put the radiator fan back in, which is right there, and I gotta put it back in. Don't forget to put a piece of cardboard when you take the radiator fan out. Put a piece of cardboard to protect the radiator. Yeah, so I gotta put this back on. This is came off the top of the radiator. Gotta put it back on. I think they're connected with a bunch of T25. Use T25, and they pretty much connect on top of the radiator. So put the radiator fan back in. You slide it down, and there are two connections. There are the connections here to connect them, and I have to reconnect the big hose here to the radiator, and then refill the reservoir tank with coolant. I didn't really have to remove this hose, but it was a trial and error thing, so I ended up taking it off because I wasn't sure. But on the radiator fan, there is a latch right where the big hose is. There's a latch here to go back and forth. So usually just flip it back so it passes the big hose that I disconnected there. Yeah, so that's it. And here's the socket to reconnect it. So to reconnect, you just slide it back down, and it goes on a slot here. There's a slot. If I can see it here on my hand, there's a slot right here that it goes on, and there's another slot in the corner here where my hand is. There's another slot here, so the fan just slide in between there and lock. So let's put everything back together and see what goes. Okay, so I put the fan back in, reconnect the cables, reconnect the hose. There's a latch on top of there that you gotta, once you put the hose back in, you gotta push down on it. It's right there. So now I gotta put the main cover back on. So I put the piece back on the front. These are T30 Torx bolts. And now I gotta put the plug box on, the air box on, your filter box on, and then I didn't really have to take this off, but I don't know, it's just trial and error, so I end up taking it off. So I'm gonna put it back on and put the air duct back on, and then connect the vacuum hose. And that's it. Now I reassemble the air filter box, reconnect the air duct. Reconnect the air duct, then I connect the vacuum hose right there and retighten the clamps. Now I just have to reconnect the battery in the back and start it up and see what happens. Obviously I have to put some more fluid back in the radiator because some of it leaked out. I still got a lot in there. But yeah. So that's pretty much it for changing a alternator and a N62 BMW 2004 BMW 2004 BMW. Bring it. 2004 BMW 545i, the alternator. So now we're gonna start it and see what's up. Let's go.